Guys, I really need to know everyone's starter Pokemon or we can't leave.
Oh, I'm a Squirtle person.
Okay.
Oh, me
Yeah.
too.
Me
I'm a
too.
Squirtle.
Three Squirtles.
Yeah, because it's the obvious choice. You're
Bulbasaur,
not
man.
a Bulbasaur
I
starter.
absolutely am.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Are you okay? That's some pick me energy. Like, I don't know. Like, that's right.
I'm also Bulbasaur.
Yes. Hello, and welcome back to Gateway to Anime. How are you all? What's going on? Charlie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm excited to finally have some new company here.
Yes, indeed. Not the normal drac that we serve up north.
Yeah,
Instagram.
boo. Honestly, get out of here, guests.
Get out of here, normal guests.
But
of
now we've
which
got
we
better
love.
guests.
We do have some new guests today. It's very exciting, actually. We have the Besto Friendo podcast crew on, and I will let them introduce themselves and introduce their podcast because they are another Sydney anime podcast. It's a crazy old time. So, Besto Friendo, welcome to Gateway to Anime.
Yeah.
Which camera? I don't
What's
know.
happening? Yeah.
All of them.
The
That
one that's
one, that
actually
one.
over
There.
yeah, the one that we're actually in. Probably that one.
Probably there too.
Probably that. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Bit
it's
of
fair
both.
enough.
First guest in
Holy
the
shit.
studio, perhaps the best of guests.
Absolutely.
In the studio.
The Besto Guestos.
But you've already,
Best of guests.
by having us first in the studio, you've already unlocked the gateway to our hearts. So thank you very much for having us. My name is Mike, aka X Truly Trill. I am one of three hosts of the Best of Friendos podcast. The podcast based in Sydney around anime, all about weebin, well-being, and
Wellness.
wellness.
My name is Camie, aka Sunnet. I am a singer-songwriter / weeb. Obviously, wait, am I a weeb? No, I'm Japanese. So I can't. I like anime.
Appropriation of Japanese.
And yeah, just currently in Sydney, enjoying my time for the next month or so. And yeah, really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm Luke or Skimmo Lim, and I just grew up on that cheese TV / toasted TV shit, and then someone put me in front of Vampire Hunter D, and now I'm on a podcast.
We have the same villain backstory. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and now I hate anime with a happy ending.
So yeah, tell us all, how did the podcast begin? How did you all meet?
Well, actually, it first started when I released this is not anime related, but I released my song in 2020 in June, and my producer actually was living in Sydney at the time, and he rocked up to his event. You were playing?
Yeah.
And which song would that be?
Oh,
Yeah,
Two-
give us
Plug your own shit.
Absolutely.
Come on.
It's called 216 Drive.
Available on all
160.
streaming platforms. Currently.
Wow.
So my friend, he actually showed it to him and he really liked it. So he DM'd me on Instagram saying like, "Hey, I love your track, blah, blah, blah."
The reshare. as well, the tag. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
He
tag this
reshared
artist.
and reposted. And then, yeah.
Yeah, at the time it was pretty crazy because my friend Ali, who'd been kind of grinding away, pretty good friend Ali, had been grinding away with music for some time. Him himself being an expat from the UK, and I think the funny thing is that anime came into the conversation a lot earlier because it was a part of an interview that Hello Asia did for you by distance, because that was at the beginning of the height of Corona as well. They did an online interview with you, and that's a pretty big, I guess, Asian Australian pop culture magazine that's based out of Australia. I saw the feature and I was really happy for Ali, but I was also happy that he kind of was in a way diversifying his portfolio because he'd never worked with I didn't know he was working with international artists. So that was really cool. It was one of those funny things where I reshared your song because it's a really dope song, legitimately. And then Ali also asked me at the same time, I don't know if you know this part, but he's like, "So Mike, tell me more." I'm trying to do his English accent. "Tell me more about this anime. What's this anime thing?" And Ali is he is the producer, musician kind of guy who's steeped in music history in terms of jazz, blues, like that background, and then also like old like house, like Chicago house, that kind of stuff. So Asian music, like to him, especially like stuff attached to like your influences, which you described,
Yeah.
were like out of his realm. So he was asking me about like all the visual tied into the music, and I was reading your interview and being like, oh, that's really
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
points of reference. There we go.
And that was my track released after I did a music video or like a video AMV.
Yeah,
An
AMV.
AMV of
Hell yeah.
Princess Mononoke for one of my covers. Like I just did a cover and he's like, oh, just do whatever with it. What do you want visually? And I'm like, I'll just do Princess Mononoke. And then he asked him, like, what is this anime thing?
What's
Yeah,
this?
it was saying that.
But like, yeah, it was really funny. Then like we started talking and then found out that we both really, really like anime.
And then things kind of came together. Like we kept talking, obviously, to the point of where Cames is here now in person. Luke was one of the earliest people who also knew about Camie through me, and so then they got to chatting online. It was just at one point that all three of us were chatting fairly regularly. That we were like, well, there are things that we have ideas of doing together, but while we're still kind of in this state of like being from home and stuff, why don't we do a podcast around anime? Because people were like, I don't know, I was making MVs still. People were still talking, like we were talking about anime ourselves, but then we had friends in like the satellite of us like speaking on it and bit like too. And then the new seasons, and every time a new season came up, it became like a contentious like point of conversation between the three of us and some of our extended friends. Yeah. And we're like, why don't we blow this thing out and see what the community looks like in Sydney and also by proxy in Japan, because we've since had some people on the podcast that are from Japan as well via Camie, and it's like, and look at what it look like, see what it looks like contextually, because we were saying this before the show or before we started recording, but anime is such a mainstream thing, but it's also because it's now like more open and people are like wearing it on their sleeves that they're fans. We're so interested in the fact that it's a part of people's everyday lives, and how is that effectual versus like us also looking at like a previous generations of anime fans, maybe ours, and where it was something that was like more hidden. So we decided to kind of base the podcast off of that.
It's a fascinating topic that you mentioned, because what's interesting to me about it, and we talked about this a lot. I mean, we're called Gateway to Anime, and don't worry, we'll ask you what your gateway to animes were. It's just an interesting thing to me because essentially when we grew up, we're all relatively similar ages, it was very much a nerdy thing, right? Nerd culture. And now it's interesting to look at the video games as nerd culture, PC,
comic books,
comic
Marvel,
books,
DC is now literally Hollywood cinema.
It's mainstream culture. And what else fascinates me is something that we're actually going to talk about in the podcast soon, is the idea of what's interesting about the Western anime fandom is that we are still a subculture. I mean, it's becoming more mainstream, but it's a subculture looking in on a mass cultural phenomenon in a country where it is the dominant culture. Manga and anime is the thing in Japan, right? And we are still a subcultural phenomenon in the West. And it's something that just intrigues me. And it's getting bigger and bigger. I mean, we actually met at SmashCon, which was hilarious because I was walking past there, Joss and Charlie were off doing something, and I was like,
we're doing some great work.
Doing some wonderful
beautiful
work,
cinematography. No, I'm sure it was fine.
But I walked past this booth which said Besto Friendo podcast. And I was like, what? Another? Sure. And I looked you up on Spotify. And I was like, oh my God, it's another Sydney anime podcast. What? And I was like, guys.
Literally, I remember I was at the Gundam, that hobby kind of thing, interviewing a guy, and Sam's like, runs up like he's just found Christmas. I don't even know. Like he's just and it's just like, he's like, there's another podcast. I was like, what? Where? Like, oh my God. And then you dragged us over and you're like, see? And it was like, I see. Hello, how are you going? Like, and it was
like, oh yeah, they're also doing coffee.
Did you see him just going like coffee?
Yeah.
That was, cherry on top, to be honest. It was great. No, but it was just fun because I think the reason that I find anime becoming more mainstream, more interesting in terms of just like my life and how I grew up is that like there was, when I was growing up and I was really into it, there was not many people to talk to about it in general, unless you were like on very specific forums. Nowadays, I feel like there's so many more people just like absolutely keen, and like it's just exciting. I meet people who like it enough to do a podcast about it. I'm like, get on in here, let's chat about anime. Yeah, it's cool.
That's crazy, right? Like we're now like, imagine like when we were kids and we're like, we're gonna do podcasts about anime, really laughing at each other.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Like, what are you talking about?
This is gonna take the conversation a bit out of the realm, but I was having a breakfast catch up with some students this morning because I had this morning class where I had some students and they're like just on the cusp of turning 20. And one of the things I said to them, because they're stressing, there's exams, there's all these kind of existential crises happening that you do have like in like your early 20s. I said to them, look, it's a weird and cliche thing to say, but if I write a list of things I'm doing now and post it out to my like early 20-year-old self, like just because I chose to do these things, it would probably blow that version of me's mind because none of this was like thought of. Like none of this was like kind of written in stars or like something I planned, right? But it's not like it's a weird thing of just kind of like bringing it back to like anime. It's like following the path of like, I don't know, we were talking about this today, locking into things that make you happy, and it doesn't have to be like an occupation thing, which is that it's just simply saying I love anime and I like it to the point where I'm now going to participate. To some extent, or find a way to participate.
I feel like adulthood is truly just finding what made you happy when you were younger and just like I feel like in your 20s you kind of go like, oh, none of that, and then you're in your 30s you're like, absolutely, give me that again. Like, whatever I was into that I shunned, like it comes in a full circle. So.
I have a question for you guys actually at this junction. What is the furthest extent that you've tried to like pursue something that's like crazy outlandish, but now that you have the resources, say at a point when you had the resources to do it, you were like, I'm just going to shoot for that and see what comes back. Outside of the podcast.
Outside of the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
God, I have no aspirations. So, well, Sam and I have an interesting history. We both were actors originally. So I guess that was probably the craziest thing I ever did was go to drama school and be like, I'm going to be an actor. That was probably an insane thing to do. But I don't know. I think that to me, when you aim for things as huge as being like, I'm going to be an actor or I'm going to be a musician or I'm going to do stuff like just like so great. I think that when you, and I have this thing, this is completely not related to anime, so sorry everyone listening for anime. But I think that what I really enjoyed about getting older is just understanding that you don't have to, that not everything has to be a huge commercial success for you. And like when you try and do something that was originally a first love, like acting, or for me, I'm a singer as well. So like singing, acting, that kind of thing. And when I tried to do it as a career path that was like so everything, I like lost all the joy in it. And then I think coming back around and being like, no, just like don't put so much stress on yourself. Just enjoy it because it doesn't matter. And you never know when something's going to take off, particularly in this current climate where you can just like post something on TikTok, go viral and be like, well, that was weird, you know, kind of. It's so, it's about just being happy. I don't know, does that make sense?
I think loving things is really important because, similar thing, like actor, musician, my whole life basically. It's only since COVID that I've changed careers, sort of had to. But I mean, I just did a musical just recently where I sort of got called in because that was my background in musical theatre. And then I was a drummer in 2 different bands across about 5 to 10 years apart. So like that was sort of my background. And it's interesting as well, you're right, because like the first band that I was in became unfathomably famous.
No, you're so famous, it's funny. Have we not talked about this on the podcast?
I've never actually mentioned this on the podcast before, but like,
do it.
Guys, you're gonna die though. It's not a nice story.
It's not that bad a story. It just is what it is. But I used to be the original drummer of Tame Impala. So
excuse me.
But like
left bad
to do musical theatre, which I then did for quite a few years.
You did do great music theatre.
Did Phantom of the Opera all around the world. Did like a whole bunch of shit. Then like then I landed We Will Rock You, the Queen musical here in Sydney. And I remember at the time just being like, I hate this. I ended up hating musical theatre. We don't need to talk about this now, but but then I went back and started another band. That was going really well. I mean, not Tame Impala well.
No one could have said. I remember when you told me you were like, hey, me and Kev are gonna like. You were just like, I've got to really make a choice and move. And I was like, don't worry, your high school band's never gonna make it. Sorry, and then it was like, oh my god,
fucking got him.
More full name.
That's still sick though.
Yeah, look, it was a great experience, and I've had great experiences across 2 or 3 different careers at different points in my life, which has been really rewarding. But also at the same time, like I remember when I walked away from musical theatre, I had a lot of people being like, "You're insane. What are you doing? Why you're doing the thing that's really hard to do, right?" And I was like, "But I don't like it anymore. I don't like what it's doing to me. I don't like who I'm becoming. I don't like it's a job, and like jobs are fine, but like this is not why I did this." And like even do the podcast, like we work really hard on this, and like sometimes it's hard work, right? But at the end of the day, I think you just need to enjoy what you're doing. The reason we started this is because we were like, hey, we love this thing. We want more people to love it. Therefore, let's do a podcast where we break it down, get rid of the stigma, and look, there are stigmas to this thing for a reason. There are some problematic issues when it comes
100%.
to anime, and there are some huge barriers that, we call it our anime blinkers, where sometimes we put them up and we're like, that's not so bad. And you're like, show it to would you show that to a normal person?
Yeah.
They'd be like, what the fuck, yo? But these are cultural differences and whatnot, and it's just an interesting thing. But I don't know. I mean, I've sort of taken this on a weird tangent, but I just think it's a fascinating thing. And is that why you guys you simply love anime, right?
I don't feel it was a weird chat. I think we steered you into our realm of the well-being and wellness part.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Love
crossover. We love a crossover.
We're doing the crossover, y'all.
Savage trauma. Here we go.
Commandeered podcast to podcast.
No, it's wonderful. It's great.
We had, for point of reference and like talking to your past career, we had a band on as a guest. And that was interesting because a lot of their influences they were releasing an album on the Friday, so we did an episode for them that came on the Thursday.
Wow.
But a lot of their influences are heavily cyberpunk influence. Right. And from that, we kind of connected with them because we know them through hospitality and coffee and all that kind of stuff. By the way, Luke introduced himself as someone who's just generally a hater, and that's kind of why he's on the podcast. Yeah. It's he's the anime hater,
devil's advocate.
Not hating anime, but hating things outside of the canon of anime that raised him, which we love. We need contention. We need
Everyone needs a hater. We've got too many haters on our podcast.
I feel like I'm out of you two who are very much just hyped about stuff. I'm the angry cynic who sits in a library. Yeah.
Don't trigger him. There's two
words. In a turtleneck with a glass of wine, sipping a mellow and going, despicable.
Yeah.
They've done it
but
again.
Then when Yu-Gi-Oh, the words Yu-Gi-Oh comes, he's like, oh, what did you say?
Yeah. That's all right.
Did you summon me?
That was good. You summoned me. Very good. You've learned the semantics now. It's
the card anime.
Yeah,
that one.
the card anime.
But
Blue Eyes White Dragon. You've activated the trap card. Sorry.
Triggering
stuff.
Dispel. Yeah.
But for the Aspire guys, it was that their music, the way that they viewed it was a soundtrack without a movie.
Without movies.
We do listen to their music. It was nice because with friends sometimes they'll send you their music and stuff, and especially when it's indie, you're when I listen to it, I'll get around to it. But I remember listening to Zach and Mateus's music first instance, and it was it reminded me of the retro animes that got me into it. So things, when I say retro, that's because it is what it is now, but the Kawajiri movies, things that were quite taboo as well back then. Obviously Akira is a big reference point.
That was the one that Zach specifically pulled up.
Yeah.
It's
it took him so long to mention Akira. I was like,
that's the clear reference.
Waiting for it.
That's the one.
And I was like, how about Akira? And he's like,
so he was referencing stuff like Blade Runner and stuff, and was going,
come on.
So it's like an anime version.
A lot of inspiration from the tonal shifts and stuff in Blade Runner, and literally behind Matthias's head was
a vinyl,
the
Akira vinyl. Yeah,
Zach turned to his left and went, "Oh yeah, dude,
that too,
Akira,
that too, exactly." Yeah.
And I think after that he pointed out one of the songs specifically on the new album.
Well, then
it's that's the Akira one.
But then it just it just came barreling out, where it was Ghost in the Shell, all these points of reference, and it's there. Do you the things that you were doing, say with Jam Impala and then after musical theater, but anime was there before all that. So
absolutely was.
So there was a color in the mind, especially when you're creative, we're all here creative people, I feel, and we have that sense of imagination and wonder, and anime is something that just colors that in so much.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%.
I'll never forget when I first found the burnt CDs that you wouldn't let me watch.
Because
Sav's my older brother here, so you didn't know. So you're a bit older than me, and I was an annoying little sister. And I remember I was like, "What are you guys watching?" And you were like, "Get out of here! Get that girl out of here!" And I was like, "Oh." Anyway, so I would just go and steal them and watch them. And I remember I was probably 13 or something, and I feel like it changed my life because I was just watching. I was like, "This is what I wanted from storytelling."
Yeah.
All the books I read were often fantasy, big world builds, anything like that. All the video games that we've played, we're actually going to do an episode soon with someone about JRPGs. So like
Oh,
those
yeah.
kind of like video games that we always loved,
Actually,
Final
that's-
Fantasy, that kind of stuff that was just like anime aesthetic and also huge magic systems, world builds, fantasy novels, that kind of thing. And Naruto was the first, like, other than obviously the anime that I wasn't aware was anime when I was a kid. I think seeing that, like, such a comprehensive world build with like huge, like, yeah, I just love big fight scenes. I love all that sprawling characters. So I think the anime ended up just ticking so many boxes for me. And it still does to this day. I don't think any medium does it quite like anime in that regard. Like there is just so much room for
It's the long form.
Yes.
When they've got that time to introduce an element and then like slowly tease that out. That's if they, give enough of a shit about it.
Yeah.
And if the fan
Depending on the show.
responses, the fan response to that character is awesome, then guess what? You're getting an origin. Power's getting an origin. It's like a family thing, right?
Yeah.
Or like it's from an artifact or something else. But only if you test well with audiences.
Yeah, that's it.
But for some reason, Naruto had crazy backstories
Yeah.
for all these different clans. And all these different
World
like
build.
yeah. The world build was crazy.
He pulled up a Wikipedia.
Yeah. So
And he was like, look, and I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
So back when the Ninja War arc was starting to air, I was in my last year of high school, and there was a Wikipedia specifically, like it was called like Leaf Ninja or something.
Yeah, Leaf
Leaf Ninja,
That's right.
and it would constantly get updated, and it was super like weirdly well administered in that you could like click on this thing to like hide all the manga spoilers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I think I remember
Yeah,
that,
so you
actually.
could you can like gatekeep yourself out of spoilers,
Mhm.
which is so
That's really
unusual
good.
for Wikipedia. Even in like the preamble for a character, you'll find like, oh, they die in this season.
Yeah.
I would say that in the intro line. Yeah.
Cheers. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you're searching, like
Yeah.
I'll kind of tangential, but I was searching a character from the new like Lord of the Rings show to see where he connected it into the lore, and then
Good
like
luck getting a name though.
yeah.
We ain't got the rights to that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, that's a problem.
Hey, guy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because then, like,
L4.
I just saw like
Oh,
created
man.
like for the series, like for the original Amazon series, and I'm like, okay, so he's not fully like distinctly anyone, but then sometimes you get that first paragraph where it's like in the lore, he later goes on to become the king of this thing, and you're like, okay, so that's the end of the story. Yeah, all right, cool.
That's me with House of the Dragon. I was like, I wish I didn't get so fanatical about Game of Thrones that I now know everything about the Targaryens. So
Yeah.
now I'm kind of like, well, I know how this one ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Spoiler,
yeah.
not
me,
well.
Me just looking at the family tree. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was literally following a line.
Yeah,
But it's also kind of like reading a manga and then watching the anime, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
an interesting thing. Like it took me a while into the fandom for me to start doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like, or mostly I started reading manga when I get so frustrated that I'd get up to a point where it would stop. And I'd be like, no, no, I
Yeah.
must know this, and go and read it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I read all of Bleach as well, and now it's about to
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
out. Very
Bleach was
exciting.
my one.
Bleach was like
Bleach
followed on
was
from
a
Naruto
huge
to me,
one,
and I
yeah.
was just like, God damn.
Yeah, let's talk about Gateway. So Bleach was your one.
Yes, let's talk about this.
No, so in the, I guess, zeitgeist of the toasted TV, cheese TV world, the start of my Saturdays was usually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Mhm.
and then depending on the time, it was Zoids,
Yeah.
and then there was
Zoids.
also Dragon Ball Z. If I managed to like coerce myself into waking up early enough to catch that before going to school, yeah, Dragon Ball Z was massive for me, and Zoids
I
was
keep-
super over the top.
I keep asking you with Zoids, was it New Century or the Chaotic Century?
Oh,
you had
yeah,
battles.
New Century. Yeah.
So like the corporations and
Yeah, the
battles.
NBA. But
Yeah,
Zoids,
NBA, but Zoids. And then after that
there
came
was
Chaotic.
Then
Yeah.
there was never like they never televised actual fights against different teams. It was like super rare. It was always just the villains with like the orbital dropping like
The backdrop.
yeah
too.
the black
Sorry.
satellite thing, the umpire
yeah.
and stuff, who was like super sassy.
Yeah, sassy
And then,
umpire.
and then their team would just like airdrop.
Yeah.
And they would fight like zero, and then he would either go orange or blue.
Yeah.
And they used the green one, I think like 4 times. It is what it is.
But what was it
Yeah.
that drew you to it? Like, what was it? Something you hadn't
So
seen before?
For
or?
me, I think between Zoids, also at the time, I was like massive into Transformers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, this was after, it was not the original airing of the
Yeah.
show, which had the super zany theme song.
Yeah.
But this was like this is going into like the 2000s version of it. That I was like, oh man, how cool are robots? And then I found one which touches on my other interests. Like I freaking love animals, and I found there's robot animals that kill each other. sick.
Perfect.
Hook it to
Jump,
my
jump,
veins.
jump me in.
Yeah,
The other side of that
right.
was Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah.
where I don't know, it was really just like, I think just the over the top nature of the characters, where everything was like, if we want to improve, we need to push ourselves to the point of death. And then every now and then Krillin would die. And then he wouldn't get any stronger, but for some reason the rest of them would get stronger. Krillin dying was like the power-up switch.
It's like a meme at this point, yeah.
And Android 16 dying was Gohan's big moment. I think that was it for me. It was the like over-the-top nature of Dragon Ball, and then
Robot
robots.
animals.
Yeah, robot animals.
Very specific.
Sick.
I like it.
So dope.
Yeah.
I've never watched any Zoids.
I haven't watched Zoids either. I'm generally intrigued. Can you give us a lowdown on Zoid?
Yeah, so there's one where Chaotic Century is
that
this
comes
guy.
before
That comes-
the new
yeah.
century, literally centuries before the new century.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like Warhammer, they've got like a 30k and then 40k.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Which is for,
yeah,
except
yeah.
this is like Zoid, where there's a weird like micro Zoid, which is like a little raptor one that can jump into wrecked Zoids and bring them to life.
So the small Zoids that Luke's speaking of, they're like techno-organic. So it's like these things that are on Earth, but they're from like ancient civilizations. And then the Zoid tech is kind of built around this discovery of this ancient civilization. And it's in like a post-apocalyptic landscape. But that's before the world it's kind of like the world went to that.
Right.
And then it reset. And then the new century one, which actually came because it was dubbed first, interestingly. That was aired first. So you're kind of going backwards in a weird way because the older one was dubbed later. So you're watching like where it's at right now, which is like big corporations battling and making it a sport, and treating Zoids pretty much as like this thing that's also used for labor and industry, but then used in battles when they're approved properly.
It's such a strange way that they structured it because Zoids also, I guess, run wild for some reason. They're just like out and about doing whatever. And then there was a later one where they discovered that these Zoids can fuse with each other.
That's right.
Would find ones when they would have like a little like montage where they'd split apart and like join to someone else. And Liger Zero, the famous white one, would fuse with a phoenix. And then Liger Zero just had the most insane plot armor in the history of all fiction. And then there was another one that absolutely
the Berserker,
heinous,
the Berserker X.
And then there was another iteration
Berserker
of a
Fury,
Liger,
sorry.
I guess, that was heinously more overpowered.
I would recommend, if you haven't watched Zoids, to definitely go back and check it out. It followed a lot of the archetypes of like mecha anime at the time, where it's making a statement about the current state of like socioeconomic crises, industry, government. But with Zoids, I guess the point of difference versus like Gundam or something like that was that they're techno-organic. So it's this idea that there's a relationship with something that we don't understand, and a commentary there on like technology become like having a life of its own in a way.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because that is such a theme that runs through so much anime. And I love, we've talked about this a few times as well, but like the idea that, especially through Miyazaki's work and whatnot, the idea of, modernity versus nature and the collaboration between the two, and whether, Japan's history is so fascinating with, modernizing in 200 years, being the last modern nation to do so, like, and then catch up so fast. It's such a endlessly fascinating. And then the intertwining of cultures post-World War II with America, which I think is a reason why the West responds so well to Japanese, you know what I mean? Manga and anime, because a lot of it is very much entwined with American comic book storytelling, but with its own unique view on things.
So one of the guys from the duo, the EDM duo, he was explaining about like after the war, a lot of
Matthias was talking
borrowed
about stuff that we touched on in our degree.
So like Japan borrowed a lot of like the like machinery, culture, and stuff like that from
their visions of the future.
Visions of the future.
From like a lot of American fiction from the time.
Right.
So around that era, the kind of post-war was looking towards really nationalistic heroes.
Yep.
Like the genesis of like our modern like Captain America kind of characters, that kind of thing.
But we made it better.
Japan
Japan always borrows things and makes it better. We never create
100%.
original things. We just like to borrow things. We're like, well, we'll just do something with this.
Yeah.
But then he was saying that it goes back and forth
Yeah.
from Japan
Yeah,
to
it's
US.
the irony.
It's like the back and
Absolutely.
forth, and like
Yeah.
a lot of like anime inspired American like comic books and vice versa. So, like,
Absolutely.
it's
I
really
think
interesting.
especially now with the generation that in the West kind of grew up watching anime, and you'll find it in different points. Like we were discussing briefly beforehand, where you'll find people in like the pro wrestling world, or even
Yeah.
like in the day to day. For you find people who are in like powerlifting and bodybuilding who are constantly weaving out on stuff.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Um,
Please expand on that.
Well, I guess it's probably going to come back around into like the creationary media, which is exciting because I find the approach to storytelling is a lot more reasoned and multi-layered in anime from the time that like we grew up around than a lot of the modern stuff where we're moving towards a time of just set pieces. You want like a little bit of drama, something that's not like super in depth, that's easy to follow, and then the next big thing, people shooting colored lasers at each other. And that's
Chainsaw
it.
Men.
Yeah,
That's
it.
that sort of thing. Or like the end of One Division.
Yeah.
Different colored lasers.
Yeah, what were both of your gateway to anime?
Man, I don't know. I guess I just grew up on there is this obviously Sailor Moon.
Mhm.
I wanted my name to be I forgot her name. Anyways, yeah, one of my favorites was like Sailor Mars. And like, obviously. And then
Not Tuxedo Mask.
I thought he was so like
Come on.
loserish.
Oh, really? I think he's so hot. Like I still do.
You're
Sue me.
sleeping on Tuxedo Mask. Come on.
Okay, so Detective Conan. But then there's one anime I used to watch every day because it was on TV all the time. I forgot what it's called. It was Three Ninjas. I don't know. Yeah, they're like kids and they're training as little ninjas. They all have like outfits on and and their master is like a dog, like a white dog.
It's funnily enough in the video clip
God.
for our breakfast
I'm
thing.
going to figure this
It's actually in the
It's
compilation.
actually in the
Yeah.
compilation.
In the
for it.
compilation,
That's
yeah.
great.
I think it's like Mud or
So-
something. Mud
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah. But
I thought you were talking about Samurai Pizza Cats
No.
for a second.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
was
was
going
really
there.
like-
Also a dope show.
But it's
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
those like very like Kureon Shin-chan or like those like really short and sweet animes for kids.
Right,
Actually,
yeah.
like, my
Yeah.
parents never let me watch Kureon
Yeah.
Shin-chan.
The Japanese
Yeah.
equivalent of like a Roger Ramjet or something that we had. Super
Yeah.
patriotic 5-minute
Um,
TV show.
Mm.
But then I never grew up in Japan, so like it was kind of like frozen in time for me. Like all the anime after that was just why did I even watch? I don't think I ever watched. I read manga or
Right.
because it was never on TV. I didn't have any Japanese
What was the
TV.
Ghibli stuff?
Yeah, and we didn't have YouTube at the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it was all Disney or just, American TV and manga. That was it.
So you grew up in America?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I grew up in California and Vancouver, Canada.
Right.
So it was more like, and then I started drawing manga, like anime
Oh.
and manga, yeah, illustrating and stuff. So I never really got to watch anime while I was growing up. And like, obviously, my surrounding like friends and things were like not into anime. Like the guys were. If there were any, the guys were more. into it.
Right.
Yeah. So like it would be like Dragon Ball Z or like Naruto.
Shonen
And
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But then more and more when I went to college and university, there were more people that were into it. Mostly Black American. I never asked them, but I know somebody explaining in like a YouTube video that I saw. Not why like most Black Americans like watch it, but it's probably because our generation, we grew up with certain types of like TV shows,
Mhm.
and there were minimal amounts of like minority shows, I guess, like
Yeah.
like Asian and
Interesting,
like Black
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So they really were drawn to, I guess, cartoon and anime like Dragon Ball. And also, my friend told me this. He said that it was so like optimistic and like purely
big part,
optimistic
yeah.
and
That's a really
simple
interesting
and
point.
like that. Yeah, it's like
Isn't that the worst?
So
It's happy
they-
endings, man.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so
I hate it.
like that's
I'm gonna try
like
to find this out.
so because on that point you made something actually speaking to my brother that he brought up that I thought was really interesting. He goes, do you notice like anime is highly championed by either minorities or fringe culture?
Yes.
But it's like it's now masked up that like it's becoming like it's like the majority voice in a way, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this feeling of like anime having in the simplicity of its storytelling, like overcoming. And it's funny how that's now apparent. Like I feel these anime moments in cinema now, in Western cinema. A good example, spoiler alert, if you've been living under a rock and you haven't watched it or you had no interest at all, the Avengers Endgame scene where everyone comes through the portals. That's an extremely anime moment.
Anime.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And like that kind of thing, like you were talking, like I'm also, like to Luke's mention, I'm also in the powerlifting community within Sydney. And speaking to some of the guys about it, they all have like anime decals and the thing. They actually make anime lifting suits now and stuff.
Massive belts of Berserk.
What?
It's
The ethos of Dragon Ball Z,
and it was
like looking back, and seeing some of the things that they would say, and things that they would do, you're like, of course that got absorbed by powerlifting. Goku cranking up, Goku and Vegeta cranking up the gravity in the spaceship and training while they're waiting to arrive at the planet. You're like, oh yeah,
Dude.
I know people who do that.
I was saying, like hard work can get you anywhere. Is like a big, like massive thing. It's like hard work and like a good attitude will get you. Like will overcome.
And mostly Dragon Ball is just training.
Dragon Ball
Like
Z.
all the episodes are just training.
Training
boss fights like 20 minutes.
Yeah, but that's if you cut out all of the like tension building and them just like staring at each other
and screaming
That's true.
and threatening each other
and no
like
one-
screaming and charging up their powers.
Never forget Goku versus Frieza, where there was a literal
versus
timer
Frieza.
counting down for like 3 minutes till he blows up the world or whatever. And it was like the episode went for like honestly 18 episodes straight. And I was like, oh, it's been 3 hours.
Yeah. You don't realize how short the actual the action itself is until you touch the video games. Like Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the Frieza saga finishes so quick. And you're like, oh, that's right. They only actually fought for like a tiny amount of time.
That amount of it. The rest of it.
There was like a pre.
Don't forget,
Super Saiyan-
don't forget travel time.
Yeah, true.
Travel time.
There's like a pre.
Yeah.
There's a pre Super Saiyan fight, and there was a fight where he goes Super Saiyan, and then he starts charging up his Death Ball, and then they fight again, and then that's the end of that saga.
That's it.
Thanks for coming, everyone. And then you're on to like the Android, and you're like, wait, that's it? Why do I feel like so much of my life went to that saga?
It's like D&D where it's like 1 minute is 10 turns. And you're like, what?
You found the anime.
Yeah. By the way, I found it.
Oh, what is it?
So there's 3 ninjas, and then obviously like other friends. But then it's called Nintama Rantaro. Nintama Rantaro, and it was like very short, like kind of like. I don't know what I would say.
Quick adventure,
like Simpsons or something. Like really like small dilemmas and then concluded.
self-contained
Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So
It's
it was
kind
really
of
good,
sitcom.
and it was always like it's like really weird, like afternoon-ish. Like
Remember we were talking about this? Like now talking about that format. Remember in the newspaper you used to have comic strips and you'd read 4 blocks of thing because we're talking about the work rate of like comic artists and to that effect, like it just
Crazy.
blows into perspective manga, like how hard manga artists and
mangaka.
work, right? And we're thinking about comic strips, like you had like Archie, you had like Phantom. It's like all 4 panels and then it's over. It's like, wait until next week. And you're like, man, I read that so quick. You're like, it's gone.
Was Garfield asleep?
Yeah.
Being like, I hate Mondays.
I want
And I was
lasagna.
like, Genius.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, shout out to the writing team
Yeah.
for Garfield.
Yeah.
The whole finger stuck in a lasagna.
Mangakas
and
though,
that's
like
it.
so Oda,
Genius.
obviously,
Yeah.
who is One Piece
Of course,
mangaka,
yeah.
like
Oh, well, yeah. Well, the fact that he's been on like holidays twice in 30 years and just his day.
Only 30 years.
is like- and just his days are like insane. Like we did one of our episodes of how an anime is made in the big animation studios. I sort of went through and broke it down. And it's like it is insane.
Oh, it's hectic.
The work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Japanese work culture is a fascinating cultural phenomenon, I suppose. And not dissimilar to Americans. I've got a few American friends. They're like, work is everything.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's like, I think it's karoshi, which is actually working. Translates to like working to death.
Yeah.
Or then there's karoshi hotline helplines and work ethic. It's funny again. We were talking about before about doing things you love and whatnot. Neoliberalism. I'm not going to get on a communist rant. Don't worry. But,
Sam just went back to university. Is it obvious?
yes. But neoliberalism makes you monetize everything, and it's a fascinating thing where like even like and even for us that do this podcast, like, how do you monetize this? It's
I
like,
know.
how do you monetize the things that you love? And like, even when I was in my band, like my last band, not the first one, but like our manager would be like, I used to play PC. I played Overwatch back when it was actually a thing. And she was like,
rest in peace.
yeah,
Overwatch.
RIP.
Oh,
Second
man.
one's coming out. It's not going to be good. But she was like, start a Twitch channel. And like we'll link that to the band. And like,
Yeah.
but I was like, can I just actually enjoy my fucking self?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not have to try and like perform
Yeah.
in the time I'm not performing. You know what I mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
fascinating thing that we're always doing, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be like commodified. The commodification of the self essentially
Yeah.
is exhausting. You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
it's and we do this because we love it, and this is why it's so great getting y'all on, because it's so good to talk to people who love something and are doing it because we love it, and like if money comes, great. And of course I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to make money. It'd be obviously great to make money and do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
things
No,
that
we
you
don't
love.
want any money. Patreons, get out of here.
Oh, patrons, get out.
We'd
No.
like to say,
Yeah.
please leave.
I actually want negative money. If I can spend more money on anime, then that'd be great. More subscriptions, please.
It's a difficult thing to pass, because like you've got to, obviously, doing the thing that you love, you want to make money from it, of course, but it is an exhausting notion to constantly have to find ways to monetize you
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
entity and your interests, and that's what YouTube and TikTok and everything promotes entirely, which is in many ways fantastic. It's really cool. And social media has magnified marginalized voices, which have never been able to be heard before, which is really exciting. But it's also like just part of this system where we're all stuck trying to rise to the top. And, it's like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Again, I've taken this in a totally
No,
opposite
that's
you're
great.
right. Yeah.
situation,
Fully,
but-
yeah.
I just want to talk about anime swords, and that was.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
We'll get back to that.
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
No, but you're 1,000% right. I think it's very surreal. It was an interesting analogy that I can't take credit for, but it was like the daunting sense of being in uni these days, because it's almost like a precursor to professional life, whatever that is in case, right? And it's like people walk around with their resumes on their face. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's how I'm going to interface with other human beings, by like selling myself straight away.
Yeah.
And not thinking about this person as like, oh, they could be my friend, they could be a friend or something, right? A besto friend, possibly. I'm good at this, don't worry. I'm really good. But it's like one of the things where it's like when you walk into that thing that you love, for us anime, you can wear that on your face, like kind of thing, and be like, it's like a part of something that I enjoy doing, and it's something that I take seriously enough that there's regularity.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, like, someone like paid me to do this something. I do this regularly enough. You can find this. You can see that people actually do view and listen.
Mhm.
And so if you'd like to check out the show, like go for it, right? If you have an interest. And it's funny how that's kind of like, I'm sure you guys found it too, where it's a bit of like funny gravity from walks of life where they're like, actually, like I really enjoy anime, but it's like I had no one to talk to about it.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Even still. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what was
What was
your
your-
gateway?
Yeah, what's your gateway? I was gonna say, come on.
So
Yeah.
looping
Let's
back,
see your
We're
gateway.
helping.
It's a really tough one. It was just being like the biggest geek since like I was like as far as I can remember, and having two brothers as well,
Mhm.
all of us into the same stuff,
Right.
all the way through to now. I could like Chris and Andrew, shout out to them. They're both like working artists in media. For the most part, they're doing like what they want to do right now, but a
Mhm.
lot of that, like, and for myself as well, it was following that path of being like, no, stick with it, really like it, as in like the fanship.
Mm.
And I think with anime going way back, like I said, Samurai Pizza Cats before.
Mhm.
I mean, it was all sorts of like cartoons, things like that. But the first thing that probably was anime that I watched was either the Street Fighter animated movie, which was 95 or 6,
Oh, yeah.
or and that's
Good year.
crazy. Yeah. It was.
Were you even born?
I was born.
Oh.
95.
Yeah,
Fine,
he was.
yeah.
Yeah, it was either that or it was.
Don't.
Yeah, you're like yeah.
You
What
keep forgetting
generation-
I'm a child.
Yeah, like what generation of anime are we talking about?
Yeah.
Or Voltron, really. Like we're talking about the morning
Voltron,
cartoons, but there's so many
Shit.
iterations of Voltron now. Like
Yeah.
so in talking to
It's like a recent
our
one
guest
on
the other
Netflix.
night, because we couldn't gauge what generation Sharina was in, but I was like, I lived through 3 or 4 iterations of Voltron now. Yeah, and I was there for the first one. Like, yeah.
So
even
did we
the
find out, is she in like the same anime generation?
yeah, re-envisioned, I guess. Transformers is the same thing, but we've never spoken about this with Transformers. So I remember all those like the cheesy sing-song like intros that were dubbed effectively or resung, right? Zoids was really popular around our schools because of the theme song, but not because people knew it. Do you remember this? The dubbed. How funny are dubbed theme songs? Just quite
I will never forget One Piece's fun. 4Kids. Fucking dubs.
Oh no, we've touched 4Kids.
I'm so sorry. Did I trigger you?
You're wrong. There were 3 trigger words.
Honestly, I kind of didn't mind the One Piece 4Kids version.
Yeah.
Bit of a banger. Sorry, go.
No, like and Pokemon's the biggest show of that, and Sailor Moon, like the English versions.
The
like,
best though. I'm sorry, like Pokemon theme song English.
You can't.
Sailor Moon,
Iconic.
A high school, like, because I was fairly, where would I have been? Like, coming into high school gift that I got from my auntie. She brought it back from Hong Kong. This was before its Western release. Was the Pokemon soundtrack in like CD disc form, and it was all the English songs. And I don't know if you all remember this, but it was the theme song to start it off, and then the rest of the soundtrack was they had Viridian City, they had Nurse. Was it Jenny
I
and
reckon
Joy?
we had this CD.
Yeah, there's all the songs.
Was the Pokemon rap on there?
Yeah, Poké Rap.
That's all that matters. But
Pikachu's Goodbye.
We had that CD. We
with the
definitely
ball.
did. Just unlocked a childhood memory.
Do you remember what it
It's the
was
best
called?
CD ever.
Do you guys remember? To Be a Master.
We actually straight up had that CD.
The start of Mike's rap interest.
That was fire. So that's it. And I remember listening to it like, because it was just like this lovely gift. And we just listening to it on repeat. And my mind has later rationalized this. And I don't know why. It's one of those things that you think about when you're just like lying in bed awake. It's like that second track, like Viridian City, and the lyrics like, I want to go to Viridian City. Because that was the ultimate. That was the end gym in the game because you went around the world and came back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, isn't it crazy that it's just right next to like the place where you pick up your Pikachu
stuff.
from? It's just there. It's just right over there.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. It made it sound like this mad journey, but you had to know the lore of how like that
you
when the
gotta
game
go the whole way
through.
Yeah.
Gotta get
Around
those
the world to
gyms.
come back.
Yeah. Go to all the other gyms and then get dumpstered by, spoiler alert, Giovanni.
Giovanni,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Viridian City was like the big Team Rocket city ultimately in the end. Yeah.
Oh,
the
man.
Dawn Idea.
Yeah, this is the generational split. Because when I was in primary school, the big one was silver and gold.
Silver and gold.
So that generation was goldenrod. So that one was that gen's only just, well, not recently, probably a year or two old, had its like next generation repackage and resell.
Yeah, I was
Switch
still
or
in primary
something.
school when that happened. I'm on the cusp, in between.
Oh yeah,
I think I'm
you're in betweeners. Yes.
Yeah.
This is cool.
But so I remember Pokemon
Yeah.
Yellow coming out. I remember like
I bought Pokemon Red at a garage sale.
Yeah.
And the guy who sold it had all the Pokemon.
what do you mean? That is so much money.
Oh, okay.
Sell it.
Well, I've already like
Treasure it.
reset it and
Yeah.
like made it for myself.
Delete.
Yeah. And then went back and like looked at all like the hacks and things to get all the Pokemon and went, oh well, it's cool. I know how to do that. I'm just not going to do it. Oh, cool. And I'm done.
Is that rare candy? That was a thing.
Rare
you
candy
could-
would
Like
Yeah.
rare
Oh,
candy
yeah.
tricks and
Absolutely.
stuff.
Guys, I really need to know everyone's starter Pokemon or we can't leave.
Oh,
Um,
which?
sorry,
gen
we're
are
going to
we
have to
talking
go
about?
blue.
Yeah, you go,
Oh,
Jen.
first
Generation.
blue?
We must
First
go blue,
gen?
blue, red.
I'm a Squirtle person.
Okay.
Oh, me
Yeah.
too.
Me
Double
too.
Three Squirtles.
Yeah, because it's the obvious choice. Come on.
Oh, it's because the first gyms are
Is a rock
type,
gym.
and you want to feel good about yourself starting off.
Is that
So,
you?
yeah.
Is that your
I
reason?
honestly
Yeah.
feel like I was like Squirtle is for the lazy crew, which is kind of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, first up's
Yeah.
rock, yes, sweet,
Yeah.
I will just win.
But
So that's
also
why I
the-
always pick Squirtle.
Bulbasaur was totally an option, but I
Yeah,
haven't
that
met
was
many
mine.
people who were like, sick.
You're
Bulbasaur,
not
man.
a Bulbasaur
I
starter.
absolutely am.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Are you okay?
I'm a human being with blood.
Bulbasaur?
Like,
As in-
Bulbasaur is dope,
It's
yo.
like fast evolutions, baby.
Yeah.
The grass
What do you
types
mean?
tick
Max
so
choice,
quick.
you know?
No,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I
Nah,
get
Bulbasaur all
Squirtle,
the
but like
way, yeah.
Charmander's a fucking dragon. Like, come on, that's pretty
That's
cool.
pretty dope, obviously.
Yeah, like I thought I was weird picking Squirtle, but Bulbasaur, like that's some pick me energy. Like I don't know, like, that's right. Okay.
Charmander was for the powerlifters because you had to like over
That's
level.
true.
You
And
had
that-
to like heinously
Yeah.
over
That's
level
true.
to get through Brock.
And funnily enough, like Charmander was like
yours.
Charmander's on a lot of the belts and stuff.
Of
like,
course.
those are the
powerlifting.
Powerlifting.
But
sure.
there are no Charmanders at this table because I'm also Bulbasaur.
What?
Yes,
Whoa,
dude.
that's
Close.
crazy. There's no chance.
Yeah.
Most people
Hey,
are
you
Charmanders.
already said yes to marry the guy.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on, fam.
Yeah.
You can't tap out.
But
now.
but how
Come on,
I
fam.
don't know if, like in the game, obviously, like how I rationalized it was that I knew where I wanted to get my other types by categorically.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, Bulbasaur will be my plant type because I can't think of any other plant type that I care more about anyway. Like,
100%.
so I'll get that at the start, and then down the line, my fire type was going to be like Arcanine. Like I want to work to
yeah,
Arcanine.
Until you didn't
Yeah.
realize that Arcanine was just a pain in the ass. to get in the first
Or
game.
Magma. I like.
Yeah, Magma's the
Magma.
best fire
Yeah.
Pokemon.
I had an
Magma's
obsession with
the
Magma.
Magma because of Blaine. Because you know how it comes
Oh, yeah,
out of the
Blaine.
volcano, and I'm like, this is the
Yes.
coolest episode.
Yeah.
I was like Magma never went back into the Pokeball because he just
Yeah.
lived in the lava, and I'm like,
You're
what?
badass.
Yeah.
What? Oh, this is some
Yeah.
gangster shit. Yeah.
But also, controversially, I'll put it out there. I found the second geners, like the gold and silver starters, to have slightly more thought put into them.
Mm.
And I really enjoyed
What-
them.
what are the starters?
Chikorita,
Chikorita.
Oh,
Totodile,
yeah.
and Cyndaquil.
Yeah.
So
I think
my,
I was Chikorita.
yeah, that's
Totodile.
interesting because it's,
yeah.
so I have equal love for all of them.
Yeah.
But the one I spent the most time on was Totodile
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I just like water types. But no,
said
I did really like Cyndaquil. Typhlosion was freaking gangster.
Yeah.
Australian as shit. Like
Yeah.
a fire lizard with the frill neck thing going on.
Yeah.
Hectic.
Yeah, I feel like that generation is like, I remember it because I did play it, but like first gen is just locked in my memory forever. It's like a core
Oh, yeah.
memory of mine.
Yeah.
I'm just like Squirtle, Charmander,
Yeah,
Bulbasaur.
there was a recent thing where people were going around doing the test to see how many of the original 151 they could do under a time crunch. That's hectic. And then people who are doing it under the time crunch.
No, that's
I could
wild.
do that if I sat down
Oh yeah.
and
I
like
know pen and
concentrated for
paper.
multiple
Yeah.
for
Serious
multiple
study,
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, if you can do that, just like sit there and run through.
So
the
let's
list.
go
Crazy.
now. Go. That's
Yeah, so the rest of the podcast
That's all
is
we're
just
doing.
It's
us
yeah.
pulling up
7 hours.
pulling up the Pokedex on
The game thing.
Yeah.
thrilling content
Yeah,
for
it's like-
everyone.
But isn't it amazing how many like I can name a weird amount of like Sunpuktos and Bunkais and like this is
Yeah.
the things that like sit in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just and actually I read this interesting article a while back about video games because obviously we were sort of my generation was like one of the first to properly like make it a thing, and it's interesting talking about it was a psychological study where they actually found that going back and playing video games that you played as a child actually gave you a psychological like benefit because you went back to a time and place where you really felt safe and happy and whatnot. And it's like and you feel the same with anime. Like you described it once on this podcast, like shonen, watching a good shonen, like a Naruto or whatever, like it's like a warm hug. You
Yeah.
go back
Absolutely.
home, like, and that's why I love Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer. I know Demon Slayer gets a lot of hate, but I'm like, hook that to my veins. It's just
Yeah,
tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Don't worry about it. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to change fiction. It's just giving me all the hits that I need.
It's the simplicity of the thing that's happening at the core of it. But the lore, like you lock into everything because you're so invested in like that, like a few outcomes that are very like easy, but also you can empathize with in a way. Like I want to ultimately like get through this and feel better. Like and
Yes.
I think so taking the long way to answer it, I won't say that what my gateway was in the sense of like getting into anime, like watching it for the first time. Rather, what my gateway was to falling hard into anime. Rurouni Kenshin. Like growing up. That like
call.
Kenshin's story, everything, like the lore there, like even all the moves. Like that was the first anime that I knew every move set, and they just kept regurgitating it because he would train, but then they would explain how like a single sword produced like 6 stabs at the same time. And I'm like, oh, okay, don't take that away as real, in real life, but like in my head, I was like, yeah.
The Kotetsu as well.
Yeah.
You actually were onto that before I was.
Oh man,
I was
Kenshin was like one
"What's
of the
this?"
second. I think it was the second anime I ever watched as
Yeah,
well.
you got me onto that.
Yeah, and I I was like Potosai, like, oh, it's fucking lit.
Potosai,
It's
Man
so
Slayer.
good.
Potosai, man.
Absolutely. That theme song.
Yeah, the theme song with my
Yeah, no, I loved it. It was absolutely one of those ones that really got me deep in.
Yes.
Because before them, I guess we were kind of like just Naruto fans, not really anime fans.
Yeah, Death Note I think was my second like proper like a Bleach, Naruto Bleach.
Full
and then
Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist.
The first one.
The first one because Brotherhood hadn't come out then. Death Note just got me so in. I was like, wait, cartoons can do this?
Yeah.
I tried to delete it from my brain after Netflix came out.
Oh,
I was like, no.
We did an episode on live action Hollywood adaptations, and it was like awful.
That's
I had to watch
episode
Death
one
Note, and I was
first,
just
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
how did it go this
Yeah,
long? Like,
yeah.
how did they get here?
Sink a couple beers and
Yeah.
then get about it. And then it's great.
It's funny because I think it's also, something I think we need to talk to you guys about, fandoms and just, we're seeing it with Lord of the Rings, we're seeing it with House of the Dragon, Marvel, anything. You see it in the anime community all the time, but like, what we really focus on with this podcast is positivity. And like, don't get me wrong, we'll shit on things, but like, if you
Like
like
that
it,
live action one where you totally shout on
We
live
shout on
action.
all of them.
Yeah,
So it's
we've got one.
Yeah.
You could have a hating episode.
but if you like it, like that's cool. And it's like, it's not an affront to my personality. If you don't like the same thing that I like, it's okay. But you see it in the anime industry or fandom a lot. And it's not just anime, it's every fandom that exists and sports and, humanity. But it just fascinates me. And I think it's something that we're really trying to push with our podcast is just like, hey, we love this. I hope you love it too. Here are things that we love. And if you love them too, great. But how do you guys find like that navigating that world a little bit?
I feel like we're mostly in a calibration in terms of what we like. There's only, so I think I'm the most likely to be the outlier because I'm the only one who doesn't touch on isekai at all.
Right.
And stuff like slice of life,
Mhm.
anything like feel good or funny.
But what's the
It's not-
last anime you watched that's new?
Huh?
Please tell everyone.
But it's
What?
your brand.
What was the
It's your-
last
it's your
anime
brand,
you've
yeah.
watched?
My brand.
Yeah,
Was it just-
it's on your
Anything.
brand to like be like dated now.
Oh
Either
yeah,
way,
it's
like-
just it's on.
like
Yeah.
to-
Hey, I've watched stuff as it comes out recently.
Yeah, you were talking
Yeah.
about like not Hunter. What was the other one? Black
Um,
Clover.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was Akudama Drive as well.
Yeah, I
Oh,
could do
that was fun.
I'm the only one who watches that shit.
I love
Excuse me,
Akudama
man.
Drive.
love
Yeah,
Akudama Drive.
Akudama
A
Drive
lot
is
of fun.
Heck.
But I don't like
yeah.
isekai that much either. And I also don't tend to sway towards slice of life. I only like one slice of life
Yeah.
anime. And it's not even slice of life. So I feel like I get you. And
Yeah.
I think that I sometimes feel very dated because I'm
Yeah.
like, remember the good old days with like Bleach?
But
And, like, but I'm like, they were the good old days. Like
Yeah.
the kids are wrong,
Yeah, I think for me, I like having something to pull apart and like completely shred for like, oh, so that originates in this bloodline, blah, 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 and all this stuff that happened way back in the day. Oh, yes, let me stroke my beard and read more things and watch more deep dives by DB Zimaran about like Bleach stuff. And I don't get that in Isekai because it's all very in the moment. There's a lot of like nuance and stuff and like interpersonal interactions and stuff. And I can't really shred that because it's all, sort of where it is at the moment. Like it's all, like, I guess, kind of face value.
Interestingly, though, I will say this about you with like in terms of like discussing isekai series. You're very like, and I think it's the same for you because we had this discussion a bit. We touched on it a bit when we spoke at Smash. It's like being aware though of what it is that the fan base, specifically for isekai, and because they're all up in our Discord channel now. Shout out to the Discord channel. Yeah, but this could go. Yeah, this could also go wrong. It's that it
The fandom's coming for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excellent.
what they get from it and how some of it, like it's always been a pattern, especially with isekai or slice of life, that there's a certain extent of it being like fantastical projection of what life could be, especially stereotypically for single heterosexual males.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even just, I feel like nerd culture in general, I'll get into this, there's like a big incel vibe that happens there. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily just anime related to it. I think it's just like and I think that escapism, and I think that unfortunately a lot of anime storylines, such as, someone escaping to another world and then being loved by a series of beautiful women who are not necessarily, like it's a thing that unfortunately would lend itself to someone who would like to escape in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I wouldn't like to escape in that way. That sounds great. Please sign me up. But like it can be a bit problematic. I think.
That's what one of our guests was touching on in a different aspect, in that he's older now, and now he's like, this is accessing the young love that I can no longer feel sitting next to his wife.
Yeah, he's his
And
wife.
she's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
No dinner.
She was because
she's
that was funny.
trapped. She just made him dinner and brought
Yeah,
him
that's
coffee.
true.
It was so lovely.
was
Yeah, but it's like the rosy prospects and the way that you perceive those themes is something that you can only, I guess, touch on in abstract and in like retrospect hindsight.
Yeah.
I think that's why I find like you can discuss it quite in depth because you have that reflection. You from working in hospitality and seeing people within this situation, often especially like behind the bar and stuff. And like socializing with people over their problems, particularly like for the most part, it's like relationship issues or some kind of like love interest issues. You do see the projection of that, and like when it plays back into anime, people who are especially like fans, how like, and it's like it's all kind of media as well. It's like sometimes using media to find their way out of their problem in their personal lives, right? And
Yes.
I won't be a hypocrite. Like for me, like with my gateway to anime, like I've always found myself actually, I never said this to you guys, but like I found myself most invested in series where the protagonists are kind of like tragic and like somewhat near, like in a way, doomed, even if it's by like the doldrum, like Kenshin's one for sure, Cowboy Bebop, where it's like always down in their luck. Evangelion not so much because like I felt like Shinji was like Shinji's kind of spoiled. Like I felt like he's like privileged and he's just like whining. It's like just go back to Bondi. Anyway, no, I'm joking. I love
Get in
Bondi.
the mech, Shinji.
Yeah.
But it's like series like that where like it's almost like this cycle of doom, but like because for the hero, and it's like just do good through that. But funnily enough, in talking about the Isekai stuff, right? Like I had a friend who got onto downloading anime super early. So from primary school, he was on the FTP servers, all that kind of stuff.
Wow, yeah.
Just trying to like port from America because we had the QuickTime files.
Oh, that's unlocked.
Yeah.
Now we
Thank
talking.
you very
That's
much.
That's where I'm at, man. Shumi. So he was like, check out this series, Mike, because you probably haven't watched anything like this. And I definitely hadn't. It was Love Hina. I don't know.
Love Hina.
Yeah. So that was one of the OG ones. So he was so into it. Yeah. That was my introduction into a Christmas special, into like a holiday
Beach
special,
beach
beach
episode.
episode. I'm like, what's all this?
Was there a festival? I don't know.
That's
That's
it. But when he gave me the premise and I realized like my friend had this great sense of wanderlust, like he wanted to go to Asia especially, and what Love Hina was all about. Like quick draw synopsis, Kietaro is trying to get into Tokyo University because he promised his love to a girl that when they were children, and that they would both go to Tokyo University together when they grew up. This is when they were like way young. And then he goes there. His grandmother incidentally is running a all-female dormitory. He doesn't know that. And he goes, I'm going to go stay with my grandmother and find this girl. And then incidentally, not only is he staying in a female dormitory, being the only male in it, but somewhere in the dormitory, one of the girls is the girls that he promised. And there's like
Happens all the time. Happens
all the time.
Standard
Don't worry about
practice.
it. It can happen for you too. Just watch the series.
Yeah. Love is real.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so like I remember like my friend just being very enthralled by that premise and being like I wonder if this is what Japan's like. And I didn't because it wasn't something that
exactly like that.
but to be and
that's
like
how real life works, dude.
But yeah,
but not to be
just do it.
but not to be a hypocrite. I'm like sitting on the side being like, I hope Japan is like dingy noodle bars and laser guns and like riding motorbikes through the street and me getting into like like
that is pretty
gang
much
war.
what it is.
Yeah, just like
No, but
like,
I think when you look at like Japanese culture or like just work, salarymen as well, I'm not surprised there's like a massive audience for that. Because if you like, I remember when I was like younger, like in my high school years, and I go back to Japan every year to visit my family because all my family lives there, and I'll go for like a month or so, and there was always like a middle-aged man just openly watching like hentai, like there's just and it's normal,
In public.
right? Yeah.
Right.
And like, and even like last year when I went to Akihabara to like repair a laptop, like there's just like windows of like women, like their face isn't covered or anything, and there's just like they look like real estate. Like it's really weird. It's really weird. It has their age, name, what they like, blah blah blah, whatever. and daytime, right? So it seems like it's really normal. But then when it comes to like North America or something, it's taken so like differently. Like it's not, it's very like, I don't know how to explain it, but like it doesn't translate very well in North America.
Yeah.
Like obviously they're like Japan, like they should stop it. They should stop like acting that way. But I don't know, North America, I've realized that a lot of people do come to Japan expecting all of that. And it's not like that.
Right.
Sex pads.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah, we got a word for that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's not a new
Yeah.
topic.
So I don't really watch Isekai either. But
I try to avoid shows that have an isekai. Unfortunately, tends to go hand in hand with like intense fan service.
yeah.
And
Oh
fan
my
service is
God.
something that I feel like can ruin a great show. Like you'll be like, this is so cool. Then you'd be like, why is there a panty shot for no apparent reason?
Yeah.
Like off, and I kind of just like that's one part of anime I'll never be able to be
Yeah.
like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, it was like it was going
Almost
so
there.
well. Like,
Yeah.
why did you
Yeah.
do that?
And
Like,
even in the
The
stuff
Shoko
that,
Tensei,
like,
you know, why?
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Like,
why are you
why?
doing this?
Yeah.
I'd stop.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, oh, it's the best Isekai. I'm like,
Nah.
well, it's not.
yeah.
ReZero is.
Yeah.
But I was like, what's going
Yeah.
on here? Like, why the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Even in the stuff that like we grew up, there's Phantom. Except
Oh, yeah.
there were a few ones that bucked the trend. I remember none from Zoids.
Yeah.
We're
No,
back
no.
on Zoids.
Zoids
Back
is
on
very
Zoids, it was
Yeah,
helpful.
we're
Zoids
back
the
on
perfect
Zoids.
show. That's what I'm hearing. It's like maybe we peaked at Zoids.
yeah, but then my favorite thing about Zoids was there was like a not the overt villain, but one of the things that what's the name of their team?
Oh, the backdrop group? Like
yeah.
the
This is like the main characters team.
Oh, I forgot
the girl on that team was like had accidentally enthralled this guy who was like a millionaire.
I
And
remember
his
this.
thing was
I
like,
hate
my
it when I
name's
do
my
that.
name's
Sorry.
something something, and I'm the man who's destined to be king.
King, yeah.
And he was just
yeah.
he was such a weird antagonist in that he always had, like those tropes in anime where they're like trying to avoid someone or like,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
got like, it's
Mhm.
kind of like a filler episode. It's always him
Yeah.
because he's like
Right.
just trying to find, and there has nothing fan servicey about the character that he was obsessed with.
Yeah.
But their bottle episodes were usually just, I think his name was like Harry or something.
Harry.
Like, Harry
yeah,
whatever's
yeah.
just trying to chase
Eccentric.
her down
I think that's why I like
and lure her with
Jujutsu.
money.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
the female
I think
characters.
that's why I
are-
love
yeah,
all
I
the
agree.
female characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in a shonen as well, where it's kind of like we're so used to the female characters just being like, and nothing wrong with big boobs. Like
Yeah.
people
Right.
can have big boobs, that's
See what I
fine. But
do.
like, it's kind of thing where it's sort of just like
Matsumoto.
they're great, but they also have big boobs and they're also in love with the main character. Like these
Yeah.
characters came on, they could be
Yeah.
sexy, they could be not, they could be fine, that they like have their own interesting arcs. I totally agree.
Yeah. I don't know. And they're strong.
Mm-hmm.
I love how
Yeah.
like strong they are. I guess Maki. I
Yeah.
love Maki.
Oh, fucking.
Maki is so
awesome.
great.
In the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's.
We love a bit of sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Maki, I think, was one of the more out of the entire roster from JJK. I think Maki is my favorite because no one likes Itadori. I think he's out of that entire thing. Like he's the main character, and you root for him, right?
In front of him, come on.
I know.
Come on, we're
Sorry.
right here.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But
He's
as
We
far
all
as-
love Sukara.
Yeah,
so-
Sukara.
Yeah, he's like he's not completely Mary Sue because he's no idea how the world works.
Yes.
But as far as the window dressing around him goes, everyone latches onto different characters. Like there are some
Yes.
people who die hard for Panda or Mekamaru
Yeah.
and stuff.
Gojo.
But I
Yeah,
think
Gojo.
Maki
Gojo.
Maki
Yeah.
stood out because she's on just a different level of determined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Even
think
Nobara's was
Yeah.
great too. Like very
Yeah,
different. You know,
Nobara's
it's like,
great.
could have easily made her the Sakura.
Yeah.
You know, which is
Yeah.
like the bad version of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that fight scene.
At the end with the hammer.
Oh
yeah.
my god, with the
She's
hammer and
so-
Itadori.
yeah.
So
God,
cool.
That was sick scene.
I saw
Yeah.
a great
Oh
meme
my
of like
God.
it was like the villains in Jujutsu Kaisen. They're all sitting on the beach drinking.
Yeah.
There's like the
Oh,
heroes,
yeah,
and she's
yeah.
got her nails, and there's like
Yeah.
the dogs, and everyone's like, it's like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
Yeah. But
So
no,
good.
Nobara was a fantastic
Yeah.
character for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but I think even for JJK, a lot of the window dressing characters are really cool. Even the blood guy that I'm
Yeah.
like super obsessed
yeah.
with, but have no
Oh,
context or
yeah.
information yet because we're just waiting for more
More
content to come out.
yeah, exactly.
And I will not sit down and read. I will not sit down.
Nah, Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, look, we
Take
could
that, Gerald.
Sorry.
look, we could keep talking honestly for hours and hours and hours, but we should probably wrap this up for timing wise. But honestly, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
For coming and joining us on the podcast. It's so great to talk about the things that we love and hope all of you enjoyed it too.
And also, if you want to find more content from these guys, you can find them where? Can give us a plug. Come on. Where can we find you?
Instagram mostly. So Bofos, BOFOS podcast.
One word.
We have, what do we have? Well, right now it's currently just, on the Spotify and all those platforms. And then we have a server, a Discord server if you guys want to join us.
We
Well,
had
the
our
links
first
to that are in the description.
Yeah,
on the
in the
Instagram.
description.
We actually had a
Bofos.
first like mini social on Saturday. We want to do more of that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just like get the Bofos
Yeah,
out,
bring
you
get
guys
the
to
unis
next
out.
time.
Absolutely,
we'd
come
love
to
and
join.
hang
Yeah.
and
I think
chat.
next time will be a picnic with the dogs.
We'd actually
Yeah.
hoped that we
Yeah,
actually
it's a
hoped that we'd
pet-
run
pet
into you at
picnic.
Batch because
Oh,
that was one of the stops. Yeah, we're like
Yeah.
we're gonna do a pickup. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be calm. It's just
Yeah, the next,
So-
yeah,
I
next
just quit
one
my
is
job.
pet.
Like, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank
The
you
pet
guys
picnic
so
next.
much. That was,
Yeah.
that was a
It's
lot of
been
fun.
so much fun. And check out Bofo podcast if you wish, and as you absolutely should. We'll hopefully keep collaborating as we go forward because
yeah.
honestly, this is so
Yes.
much fun and it's so cool that we're all connecting with something that we love. It's so nice to talk to you guys and it's just been a lot of fun.
We
I
started this
genuinely loved it.
We started this podcast so we could talk to people about anime. So it's even better to find another podcast that likes
Yeah.
to talk about anime.
We have to do the sung rapped collaboration where we've done your podcast now, and then you come and do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
twist
it's
my
like
arm.
song for song situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely
Yeah.
loved it.
Anything you want to plug, Luke? You look like you're on the verge of
Huh?
plugging something.
Oh no, I'm.
You want
I'm
to say
just-
Bleach
I'm just
one more
happy to
time?
be
You want to
here.
say Yu-Gi-Oh?
Four kids.
Heart of the
So-
cards.
Jobs.
Heart of the cards,
Wow,
everybody.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh is the worst.
Yeah.
That'll be all.
If anyone is looking for a gateway to anime at this stage in their lives and they're listening, I think a cool way to end would be to throw out like a single recommendation gateway if you guys are down for that.
Yeah, for
Absolutely,
sure.
please.
If you're mature enough, I think you should watch Perfect Blue.
Oh, that's a
I
good
think
call.
It's incredible.
We
Yeah,
did that in our anime movies episode. It's
it's masterpiece.
Satoshi Kon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very good call.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I want to hear from everyone.
What's your records?
What
Or
are,
gateway.
your records?
Like,
Oh,
like,
one,
like
single
you wanna
one.
get
Get into
single
anime,
gateway.
but you
If
haven't
you're
really
gonna
watched it
Get
now.
into anime.
Yeah, give
It's
one.
so weird because people are like, oh, anime is like all like that, like hentai and stuff. Like I've had so many people come up to me like, oh, I don't watch hentai. I'm like, no, excuse
not
me,
that.
like that's
Yeah.
not. I mean, so I always go for the serious ones like Attack on Titan,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Very good call.
That's political and religious, all
Mhm.
that stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like I love it too. I like it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take me to convince you to watch that?
I know.
Wow. Come on.
Is that
I was
But I think
getting,
that's
like, so
probably
into it.
one for like a really broad.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's a ripper, yeah.
Yeah. Mine
Don't
will,
say
of
Zoids.
course. Don't say Zoids. We've talked about Zoids so much. It should be. No, I'm just kidding. I will not say Zoids here. But I think across so many different dimensions in terms of like bringing anime into like, I guess, Western mainstream and touching on all those themes and showing that you can build like characterize people really well. You sit down and like unpack why they are the way they are. I really enjoyed Death Note. I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Good one.
that
Cool.
that is a
Yeah.
that is a timeless classic,
Yeah.
and that fleshes out a lot of its side characters and works really well with building narrative tension. Even if like if you're expecting like shooty bang bang lasers and things, you do not. I feel like you won't end up disappointed, even though it's not shooty bang bang.
It's like
lasers.
mental shooty bang
Yeah.
bang, you know?
It's
You're
like- it's like-
I wrote it in a
Yeah.
diary
Yeah, yeah.
instead. Like,
Yeah, it's a lot of chess
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
prediction.
Yeah.
And
And if you're
I-
looking
yeah.
for that like shooty bang bang,
Oh,
I think you're already watching anime.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I think
That's
you're
true.
already in.
Yeah.
Just watch
Yeah.
Code Geass, which is literally
Yeah.
Death Note with lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're watching
yeah.
My Hero Academia because it's the easy like
Also a good
Marvel content layout
That's true.
into anime.
That's
Totally. Well, thank you all so much. Once again, as always, we'd like to thank our patrons, which is, of course, Grant, Curtis, Stuart, Rose, Samantha, Alex, Caroline, and Christian. Dom as well, sorry. Thank you all so much. You guys are the best. You can always, of course, find us on www.gatewaytoanime.com and Instagram and TikTok. Thank you all so much.
And YouTube.
Don't
forget the YouTube.
Don't forget YouTube.
All
That's
right.
actually going really well. Thank you all so much. Check out the Besto podcast. Thank you. Catch you all next time. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers. Thank you so much.